Hi folks, it's Mark Smith with Family Tree Brand Life Coaches. It's unusual that I'm doing a live stream. The reason I'm doing that is I'm using my iPad and I wanted to record from my backyard. Welcome to my backyard. This is my sanctuary. This is my safe place. Over there is my new palm tree, and that palm tree just gives me great joy and serenity. In the back we've got woods, and so if some of you folks jump on and converse and I don't converse back, don't feel abandoned, because I get to squirreling and saying hi to people, and when I do that I lose track of what I'm talking about. So welcome to the sanctuary of our backyard. That's our new family palm tree, and you can jump in and comment, talk to each other if you want to on the live stream. But I'm going to be hi Diana. I'm going to be speaking on the topic of developing a narcissistic abuse proof sense of self. Hey, emotional detective. Sienna, this is taken from a quote by Jerry Wise, who used to be at Family Tree, and now he's launched into his own life coaching practice. But hi Teresa, Smooth and Chunky. Jerry gave me permission to use this quote to make a video and to promote him a bit, but I just thought it was a brilliant quote. I saw it on Facebook. So here's the quote. Before I get into that, I wanted to say, sorry I have been making videos. Hi Stacy. About a month ago, emotional detective likes the palm tree. About a month ago, I went to Denver to visit my daughter, and that sort of took up my weekend creativity time. And then my wife went to Alabama, and I was holding down the fort. Then we both went to Indianapolis last weekend, and Rinda has been sick. So I just had, in the past month, I've had no time. I've got about 4 videos I want to make, and I might make several of them today. So, developing a narcissistic abuse proof sense of self. Hey Zoe, a new fan. I got a new fan going on here. So wouldn't it be wonderful if you could be narcissistic abuse proof? That's a little hard to say. So many times when I get questions for the live stream, or questions sent in to me via email, they're always question of, how do I do this and how do I do that? And I always answer the same: you can't. There is no how to. There is no how to. It's about, you've got to get healthier. It's about getting healthier. Hi Kimberly. She wants to be narc abuse proof. So it's about developing a sense of self, and that ain't easy, that ain't quick. Sumit, what's up, brother? See, I'm still squirreling. I can't help myself. So it isn't about how to. I could tell you how to set a boundary, but if you don't have a healthy sense of self, you're not going to be able to do it. So what you're going to do if you don't have a sense of self, hi Brenda, is you're going to be walking around taking polls. You'll talk to your family, your friends, your therapist. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do that? Until it drives them crazy, frankly. Rinda is feeling better. She is feeling better. So thank you for asking. When you have a sense of self, you don't have to. Hi Michelle, I'm glad it's speaking to you. You don't have to take a poll, because you know who you are, and you know where you belong, and you know where you're going, and you know what you're made of. So let me read this brilliant quote, and then I'm going to break the quote down just one statement at a time. Jerry Wise, he wrote this on the Queen Mary out in California many years ago. He writes, self-differentiation, hi Tommy, first timer. Self-differentiation is the active, ongoing process and work of defining self, revealing self, clarifying boundaries, and managing the anxiety that comes from either risking greater intimacy or risking potential separation, and using a zoomed out systems perspective of relationship. I'm going to read it again. Self-differentiation, hi Darren, is the active, ongoing process of and work of defining self, revealing self, clarifying boundaries, and managing the anxiety that comes from risking either greater intimacy or risking potential separation, and using a zoomed out systems perspective of relationship. So I'm going to break it down word by word, sentence by sentence, this great quote by this great family coach. So she says, damn, that's deep, Sienna. So it is deep. So I'm going to break it down. It's an active, ongoing process and work. So your recovery process is lifelong. Now, you're not going to have to be in therapy lifelong. D-Rock, I got a how-to question. I'll describe what it is, and then you can decide if you got it. All right. So it's a lifelong process of recovery. Many people they're like, how many sessions can I get before I could be done? And I'm like, dude, you're asking the wrong question. It's about how can I learn about me? How can I heal the wounds of my childhood? And how can I get healthier in my relationships? How can I define my sense of self across the board? Okay, so you don't just go to counseling, you get into recovery. And recovery is simply knowing the truth about your issues and working hard on your issues over a lifetime with the help of your team, your therapist, your 12-step group, your recovery friends. You might have a psychiatrist on the team. You might have an EMDR therapist. You might have a yoga teacher. You might have friends that are in recovery. So, second point, he says defining one's self. And there's the rub, my brother and sister. I lost the palm tree. I got to get the palm tree back in here. There we go. Defining one's sense of self. Who are you? What do you like? What makes you passionate? What don't you like? What makes your heart go pitter-pat? What do you love? Who do you like? Who are you attracted to? Who are you not attracted to? Defining one's sense of self is you got to figure out what are my skills? What are my abilities? Who did God make? You might say you don't believe in God. I'm about ready to, when I get done with this, I'm going to go to the beach. And when I'm standing on the beach, I tell you what, the majesty of it makes me wonder how people can not believe in God. But who did God make? Did he make you an artist? Did he make you a writer? Did he make you a businessman? Did he make you a mother? Who did God make? I like that y'all are talking to each other, so go ahead on and do that. So this process is about being deeply connected to yourself, to know what you feel, what you like. And I have this belief that when you're connected to your real self, your authentic self, you're always in the right place at the right time with the right people for the right reasons. Okay, Jerry's next point is revealing yourself. You got to have a self before you can reveal yourself. And by revealing self, I mean vulnerably, non-reactively, powerfully sharing your heart, yourself, your essence with safe people. And that's part of how we define your sense of self. I still go to an individual therapist every week because I'm working on my sense of self, and I go in and I articulate, who am I? What am I feeling? What's going on? It helps me sort myself out. Clarifying boundaries. Here's a great topic. I've got like 5 subpoints. Boundaries, frankly, is one of the most understood topics in mental health, in recovery. Let me share some things about boundaries. You don't need boundaries with safe people. With safe people, you can just make a request. You can say, hey, would you not do that? And then they won't do it. You know why? Because they're safe and they hear you and they respect you and they honor you. You only need boundaries with unsafe people. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means for whatever reason, sometimes they don't hear you and sometimes they don't honor your request. So you do need boundaries with unsafe people, but when you share boundaries, you should be polite and non-reactive. I've never been pulled over by a police officer and have him be reactive. They call me sir. I'm like, they're like, can I see your license and registration, sir? And I'm like, fuck. I don't say that. I think it. Because I know all that sir is going to end up with me paying a ticket that's like worth, $189, or whatever. So, sharing a boundary, you can be polite, you can be specific, you can be non-reactive, but it's got to have a consequence. And the consequence has to have some teeth to it. Boundaries work every time. If your boundaries aren't working, the problem isn't the person you're dealing with, the problem is you. You probably aren't good at setting boundaries because you don't have a fully defined sense of self. You don't know where you end and the other person begins, and you don't have the firepower to command the respect, and you don't set boundaries that have consequences. So I'll recommend a book that can help you understand allowing people to have natural consequences, and that's a book. It's an old book. It's called Raising Capable People by a man named Stephen Glenn. Stephen with a PH, Glenn with 2 N's. It's allowing people to earn and keep the consequences they've earned. And then when they earn them, you're like, I'm sorry that you chose that for yourself. Darn, I hate that you have to experience that consequence. It's out of your hands. It's between the boundary and them and the consequence. You don't have a dog in the hunt. So the 6th point that Jerry mentioned was it's about managing the anxiety that comes from risking either greater intimacy or potential separation. I'm sorry, I'm going to need a little slurp break here from my Diet Coke. Managing the anxiety that comes from risking either greater intimacy or potential separation. So what that is It's fear of abandonment or fear of engulfment. That's two sides of the very same coin. If you fall in love with somebody, there's a side that's terrified that they're going to abandon you. Why? Because your parents did, your first husband did, your second husband did. You're terrified. When you grow up and a parent is too close out of their own needs, and they smother you, and they intrude upon you, and they don't let you breathe, and they control you, then you have a fear of engulfment. So individuation, Jerry says, is about managing the anxiety that comes from risking greater intimacy, which comes with fear of engulfment, or potential separation, which comes with terrifying abandonment issues. The last thing Jerry mentioned was using a zoomed out systems perspective of relationships. And I Marco Polo'd Jerry. If you guys don't know about this Marco Polo, it's a really cool little app. You can send videos back and forth. And I said, Jerry, what do you mean by that zoomed out systems perspective? And he goes, oh, you know what I mean. He says, you're family tree counseling. The zoomed out perspective is not just looking in the here and now, but looking through the generations. Who are you? Who were your parents? Who were your grandparents? In the book Roots, there was this quote, this line, and it was Kunta Kinte. And he was looking around the slave traders' floor, and he could tell the slaves that had been there for a while, he could tell by looking at them what tribe they were from. And he said, but they didn't know who they were, and they didn't know where they came from, and they didn't know their history, and they didn't know their traditions. And it's so important for you to know who you are and where you came from. When people come in and sit on our couch, we see 6 generations of people. So the zoomed out perspective is this family tree. And if you work with me, or if you go to family tree counseling, there'll be somebody with colored pens, and they'll find out what was in this generation, this generation, this generation, this generation, and this generation. And we zoom it out, and then we have a picture of what it looks like. So this is a filled out family tree, and I blocked out the names of the people. And it may look like chaos to you, but this is what we read in order to get that zoomed out perspective. And so in your relationship, as you are differentiating and you're having conflict, you might say, well, honey, this is one of my abandonment issues from my childhood, and I'm sorry that I overreacted, and I know I overreacted, and I'm just sorry, but it's wounded. It's grounded in that wound that happened between my mother and I, or it's grounded in 3 generations of wounds. So that helps you to be non-reactive, because you can step back. You can step back from the situation and not be emotionally reactive. So I hope these comments have helped you about becoming differentiated, to develop a narcissist abuse-proof sense of self. Dudes, if you're in touch with your feelings, and you're in touch with your needs, and you have healthy boundaries, and your abandonment issues aren't running amok, and you don't fear abandonment issues, then when you get around a narcissist, you are the storm, you are the power, you are the magic, and they are powerless. You spot them 100 yards away. You smell them, and you're like, there used to be a center from Africa in the NBA. When he'd block a shot, he'd go, no, no, no. And you get around a narcissist, and you have this narcissistic abuse proof sense of self. Don't come here. I'll block your shit into tomorrow, brother. It ain't gonna work. Because I know who I am, and I know where I came from, and I have a solid sense of self. So that's all I had to say, folks. This week, the live stream show is probably going to be on Wednesday night, because I'm booked with clients on Tuesday, and Rinda's still recovering. I don't know if she's going to be up for it. If she's up for it, look for us on Tuesday night. But if she's not, I'm going to have to do it on Wednesday night. So also Google Jerry Wise and get his contact information. And if you want consultation around healthy sense of self and individuation in relationship, he can provide that. He's a lovely man, and he's a brilliant life coach. Thank you for watching today. I'm going to make another one here in a little bit. Thank you for joining me in the peace and tranquility of my family tree, palm tree. God bless.